So you deliberately don't look at the finished product?
Oh, yeah. I stay as far away as I possibly
Is that
can.
right?
Yeah. If I can, I try to stay in as profound a state of ignorance as possible.
That's interesting. And is it, and forgive me, is it a little insecurity?
Just, I don't like, I don't like watching myself.
Yeah.
I prefer the experience. I mean, making the film is great.
Right.
The process is all fine. But then he's up there.
Right.
But, so long as I know what it feels like, that's good enough.
I mean, I get not wanting to watch yourself, but you should just try to push through and watch the movie.
Yeah, I guess that does sound really bleak. It always seems like a better alternative than watching all the mistakes that you're making.
No, I want to dress up. I don't want to look like me. I want to feel I've escaped me. And then I watch the film and go, oh, it's me again. But this one, not that I've seen it actually, but it's sort of easier to watch because I really don't look like me.
What do you feel like when you're watching some of your older movies? Or do you do that sometimes?
No, I don't watch.
Why not?
Well, I don't know. I'm not interested, really. I mean, it's done. Sometimes, late at night, there'll be a little bit of a film I'm in. I might watch one scene or something, and think, oh, God, you should have done it better than that. What were you thinking?
The art of performance is a craft that is said to grow with experience. As a drama teacher, observations of student discomfort and self-criticism when asked to review performances back on film has always been prominent, despite encouraging them to do so as a means of fostering growth. Since completing Drama Teach training in 2005, I've employed 3 types of evaluation techniques in the classroom: teacher feedback, peer feedback, and the students reflecting on their own performance by recording their performances and watching them back. Working at Putney High School, an all-girls private school in southwest London for the past 10 years, I have observed students making the most effective improvements when they take the time to see themselves performing and can self-reflect. While my students don't often document any negative comments, I often hear them, things like, I hate my voice, or what is my hair doing, and generally squirming with embarrassment. They seem to dominate the initial reactions, rather than watching back for those really interesting developments in their own process. But I was interested to know how I could support my students in overcoming their own inner critics in the best way possible so they can engage in the self-evaluation and develop their skills. My research was conducted with 3 groups of Year 10 students, all aged between 14 and 15 years old at the beginning of their GCSE drama course. The cohort had an average Midges score of 127.96. Scores of 126 identify students in the top 5% nationally in the UK for ability and aptitude. Of these students, 7 of them were ranked by Midges to be the top 2% of the country. Putney High School is a selective school and very competitive with other GDST schools and private schools in the London area. Many of these students apply to go to universities at Oxford, Cambridge or Russell Group universities. They are also incredibly talented sportsmen, actors, musicians, and engage in a plethora of extracurricular work outside of the classroom. Parents have high expectations for the school and are incredibly supportive and active in their daughter's education. All the students involved in the study were highly motivated to earn the highest marks in the class. The drama department results are also very strong, and in 2019, the results for drama GCSE were the highest value added in the school. As a drama teacher, I was really keen to look at how I could adapt my own teaching style, especially with evaluation, to create a toolkit that would help harness this inner critic, make them stop and watch themselves back, but in a really supported and safe way so that they can see the improvements. My literature review was broken down into 5 key areas of study, all offering suggestions as to why self-evaluation with video recordings could be difficult for students. These particular areas of study also provided me with the ideas of which techniques to include within the toolkit. I found the work of the Positive Group and Sarah Payton particularly useful as a way to hone in on the ideas of self-empathy and self-preservation. It was from this research that I defined exactly what I wanted to be included within the toolkit and what questions I wanted to look to answer within the study. This action research project attempted to answer the following questions. How effective is using video recordings to help with improvements to students' performance? How useful are the techniques in the toolkit to help the students with their self-reflection? And does it make a difference if the students self-reflect as a group compared to on their own? After my literature review, I came up with these 3 tools that would be part of my kit. The first one, speaking about self in the third person. So the idea of distancing yourself from the performance itself, so the students would refer to themselves as their names rather than I. The second was to create a positive checklist. Now what this would do would be using the assessment criteria from the GCSE syllabus so that students identify straight away what they are looking for. This not only gives them a clear idea of what they're looking out for, but also should hopefully limit the negativity and make them not focus on those superficial observations. The third would be peer feedback to scaffold self-feedback. So the students would watch the performance back and make notes on another student. They would then feed back to that student what they see, and then the student would watch their own performance back on video. When I started the toolkit and put it into the classroom, I was really aware that I wanted to create a range of data to triangulate my results, but also to really see the observations that we could see through teachers and students alike. Students completed attitude surveys at the commencement and completion of the research period. Both surveys were specifically designed to document their attitudes about video recording as a positive and effective evaluation tool. The second attitude survey also questions the efficacy of the toolkit in assisting with levels of anxiety when watching themselves back. Performance marks were recorded by 2 drama teachers within the department. 2 additional teachers conducted a tally observation chart which looked at practical demonstrations of embarrassment. These were after a work-in-progress performance and the final performance of a Shakespeare monologue. These were made notes on anything that they saw within the exercises and also in the post-evaluation discussions conducted by the teacher researcher. Students also completed open-ended questions documenting their thoughts on the process. Their main reflective journal session would be when the students have a choice of which tool they would want to pick for their final evaluation performance. I also conducted researcher observation notes throughout the process, looking at anything I observed within the sessions. Here are some of the results from my data collection. I was also really keen to get quotes from the students themselves, and here's a couple for you.
I use the positive checklist over the other 2 evaluation techniques because I find it much easier when I have certain things to focus on. In the third person evaluation, there is too much to watch out for, and it becomes very difficult to know what to say, and to separate the different things you need to talk about. With the peer feedback, the peers might not say anything helpful, and I also think it takes away from the experience of looking at your own performance and deciding yourself what you want to work on. I always find it really difficult to try and evaluate my own performance, and I feel like my evaluation is not as valid as it was if it was given from an audience perspective. Even when I watch it back, it is not the same as in the moment of the performance. Peer feedback is more critical as well, which is effective. I chose to be peer assessed because I find it useful to be given positive areas by other people to see if I agree or if it was something I didn't notice. I find that being peer assessed makes me look out for certain things that they tell me when I was watching the video back. I think being peer assessed is better because getting someone else's opinion on the piece is more helpful than it is to just have your own. It also makes you want to work on criticism because you're getting it from someone else, so you don't want to do it again and have them notice it again.
I chose this technique of self-evaluation because although I like peer feedback and writing in the third person, when I'm writing about myself I like having a list of things to focus on so I can see exactly what I need to improve on and portray it clearly. Whereas if it's someone else's feedback, you might not know what they mean or which area they were talking about. I chose it because I found it easier to look and evaluate myself as an outsider, to see what it would look like from someone else in the audience. I also find that evaluating myself in third person follows the point even more, judging and evaluating myself from a different person's view. I like to evaluate myself as if I am not looking at me, but someone I just saw perform. I chose the third-person self-evaluation technique to evaluate my monologue because I find it easier to look at my performance through someone else's eyes and pick apart the necessary improvements and strengths. Peer feedback is helpful, but I prefer looking at my monologue myself without external influence because I can set myself good targets to improve on. A positive checklist is useful, but I find myself stuck within the boundaries of the suggested list.
I found some of these results really fascinating, but I think my biggest observation that I did see was how influential doing an evaluative task individually compared to in a group. Do we feel like we have to respond in a negative way so that the others can see that negativity, so that we don't feel like we're being bold or being boastful? This is something that I would love to explore more and would be a way to develop the study. I believe that the best way of progressing in performance is through the process of self-reflection and evaluation. And by watching oneself back, it allows you to see firsthand what is coming across on stage, which might be different to what you believe is being portrayed. Drama is about communication, and I have been truly fascinated by how the self-evaluation toolkit has allowed me to give greater gravitas to the process of self-evaluation and definitely supported students in the process. To develop the research further, I would be very interested to explore the external factors of peer observations on a student watching themselves back. As I said before, I saw many times throughout the process that the student would be fine until they saw another person observing them, observing themselves. It's this element of embarrassment, of simply the idea of watching yourself back, that could potentially be linked to self-deprecation in girls. This was previously discussed in my literature review, and I definitely saw this reflected within the classroom. The majority of my research conducted in this project has been during the COVID-19 pandemic, where schools and universities have been forced to teach online. There have been many articles and accounts of how the pandemic has affected young people's health and their attitudes to self. Interestingly, these 3 classes of Year 10 students all struggled with having their videos on during my online lessons. And for those who were brave enough to have their videos on, I was absolutely grateful for them. The studies have really begun to surface now about self-esteem, looking at the concept of self-worth. The Guardian released an article in February 2021 stating that the rise in eating disorders in teenagers has increased dramatically, with doctors warning of a tsunami in cases in light of the pandemic. It's in light of these articles and many other factors that I feel that really looking at the process of harnessing the self-critic in practical performances is more important than ever. And I'm so grateful that I've completed this project and am able to continue this work in the classroom.